Alright, in the previous video we learned about drawing shapes in one-point perspective. Now we're going to do a city. Remember, linear perspective is a technique artists use to show 3D space correctly. One-point perspective is used when an artist is looking directly at a 3D space and is attempting to draw it. An example, looking directly down a hallway, looking directly at a wall of a room, or looking down a city street as if one was standing in the middle of the street looking into the distance. In comparison, which will be the next video, is two-point perspective. That's when we're looking at the corner of the object, corner of the room, corner of the hallway, or you're at the corner of the city block. Alright, so our first step is going to be the same, which is that we need to draw our eye level line or horizon line. And then we're going to place a vanishing point in the middle of the paper. Actually, it doesn't even have to be in the middle. It could be kind of towards the side if you want. And then we're going to draw a rectangle. This rectangle needs to be above and below the eye level line. So what we're going to see here is neither the top or the bottom of the shape when we connect to the vanishing point. What we'll see is the side because it's on our eye level line. So we neither see the top or the bottom. So we're going to connect to the vanishing point. Now we're going to do our cutoff line to make it into a rectangle. And then remember, this line should be parallel to the edge of our other vertical line. Now I'm going to start our second building. We're going to still start with a rectangle first. You don't see the whole rectangle because it's behind that first building. And notice that they share the same receding lines because actually these buildings, you know, that one looks shorter. If they were standing side by side, they would be the same height. This next building, I'm going to make it taller than both and right next to it. So what you're seeing right there is the corner of the building, and that would be the rectangle. Okay, you just don't see the whole rectangle because the other two buildings are in front of it. I'm going to connect down to the vanishing point again, then use our parallel line rule to cut off. And I'm going to use the eraser to clean up any lines we don't need here. So I'm just tightening up these corners here in this building. Now we're going to add a sidewalk. The sidewalk will consist of 4 lines. 2 for the top of the sidewalk, and then 1 for the curb, and then 1 for the gutter as well. So you can see they're pretty close together, but it'll make sense in a second once we get the dividing lines in. Now our sidewalk lines, which the lines you see in a sidewalk, they need to be straight across. So parallel to the eye level line, parallel to the edge of the paper. If they're not straight across, it'll look crooked. It'll look like a fence falling over rather than a sidewalk that's laying flat. Okay. And then you notice I draw the curb in as well. Okay, the curb is a vertical line, then another horizontal line, almost like a Z. And the other thing is, as you get closer to the vanishing point, you want your sidewalk lines to get closer and closer together. And eventually they'll just look like they belong all together the further you go back. bring up the lines there. So this would be a storm drain, something like that. It's kind of a really quick little shadow there. Looks like there's a storm drain there. Small, hard to get that pencil there. And then we're going to wrap the sidewalk along the side of the building over here. Now these lines actually will use the vanishing point because they are receding in space, unlike the other lines which are laying flat and straight. So. Starting a new building using another rectangle. This fourth building will be taller than the other three. Quite a bit taller, actually. So that's what we see at that rectangle. You can see that it's right next to that third building. So the only part of that rectangle we see is when it actually comes up and is taller than that third building. And yes, I know that looks steep, but as long as you trust your vanishing point, it will look right in the end. What you don't want to be doing is guessing where it goes. Know if the side is receding, it's going to use the vanishing point. The side we look directly at, meaning the rectangle that we drew, it's not receding, so we're looking directly at the object. Only the opposite side is receding down to the vanishing point. There we go, so there's our layout of the city. Our next thing will be to start adding windows and doors on here. So what I'm doing right now is using the centimeter side of the ruler, going through and marking every half centimeter, looks like. So these will be my guide points in the window. What I'll do is I'll make a line, then skip like 3 lines, make another line down towards the vanishing point. So notice how each time I draw a line, I am holding on my vanishing point and realigning it. So it's going to change at an angle. The common mistake I see here is that students will make their first line and think all the rest of their lines need to be parallel, because we've been talking about the parallel lines, but actually the receding lines aren't parallel. They change according to the vanishing point. As you see here, it's actually, if you notice at first, it was sloping down towards the vanishing point. Now as we drop down below the eye level line, we'll see that it's starting to come up towards the vanishing point. That'll be where the door is. So now I'm going to do the opposite side of the building. Now this is the side that we see the front side we see, which was the rectangle. So these lines do not need to use their vanishing point. They're going to actually be straight across and need to be parallel to each other, parallel to the top and bottom of the building. So door needs to be vertical, so parallel to the vertical lines in the building. Otherwise, if it's not, it'll look like it's leaning out or leaning in. So you want to try to get those lines as vertical as possible. Okay, so now we're doing the brick. Okay, so now we're going to add some brick. We're going to use our existing guidelines. This side will just be horizontal lines that are parallel to the edge of the building, and then this side will actually go to the vanishing point. Probably guessed that. Notice how I make sure I'm on the vanishing point and on my guide point before I make that line. Okay, it's important, otherwise it's not going to look right if you're not using the vanishing point correctly. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm actually divide those bricks up a little bit more because they're just a little too big. So I just divide it one more time, and then I'm going to go through and draw my lines in using the vanishing point, and then the opposite side is just straight across, parallel to the edge of the building. So I'm going to speed this up, but it's basically the same process repeated. I'm going to speed this up so it goes a little quicker, but what I'm doing here is put my brick lines in, and then I'm going to come back and divide my bricks with vertical lines after that. And you stagger them. You'll see what I'll do. I'll put a line. I guess I'm still working on the door here. So I'll put a vertical line in for brick, and then just stagger it like so. It's the way to do brick. Now I'm just going to go through the buildings and just start shading them, put the windows and doors in the other ones. And you guys, once you get this first one done, it's just repeat after that. And you can change it up with your imagination, where you want your door, where you want your windows, how big you want your windows, all of that. Now have fun, finish the other side of the street and background using your creativity and imagination. Thanks, guys.